Welcome to the Runway, where we cover current events in crypto, Web3, and tech. Today's Runway topics range from Bitcoin Magazine versus the Fed, the SBF trial verdict, and crypto news updates. It's Friday, November 3rd. Let's take off. Federal Reserve threatens to sue Bitcoin Magazine for their satirical FedNow merchandise, which incorporates a panopticon eye into the logo design. Looks like from Dylan Leclerc's tweet here, and I also saw it on the Bitcoin Magazine mailing list, all of the details, but it's pretty funny what is happening here. The Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago issued a cease and desist notice to the Bitcoin Magazine. And the Bitcoin Magazine actually published the cease and desist order and their response, which is just pretty funny. And I'm going to read it because I got a nice kick out of it. Dear Mr. Murphy, I serve as counsel for Bitcoin Magazine. I write to acknowledge receipt of your letter dated October 27th, 2023, and appreciate the effort to address your concerns on behalf of Bitcoin Magazine, BTC Inc., and BTC Media LLC. Bitcoin Magazine created the FedNow line of merchandise for the purpose of parody and political criticism directed at the Federal Reserve, including in connection with the launch of the FedNow platform. The design in question, bearing the FedNow name with a surveillance eye in the O, and the tagline, "The digital panopticon is here," is undeniably parodic in nature. This is an exercise of transformative use, a concept well established within U.S. trademark law, and not an infringement. See, and the lawyer cites some case study, Louis Vuitton Meletier versus Hot Diggity Dog LLC. Given Bitcoin Magazine's longstanding mission to advocate for financial freedom and privacy, it is hardly surprising that Bitcoin Magazine would critique a system like FedNow, which embodies the antithesis of these values by potentially enabling 24/7 digital surveillance of transactions. Moreover, Bitcoin Magazine's consistent and vocal critique of centralized financial entities, including the Federal Reserve, make any claim of consumer confusion concerning an endorsement or affiliation between its merchandise and the Federal Reserve rather far-fetched. We also note that employing such legal arguments, however questionable, to attempt to silence political critique of the Federal Reserve raises concerns about the foundational principle of free speech, protected under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. In conclusion, we firmly stand by our right to engage in parodic critique and contribute to the broader discourse on financial systems and privacy. Should you wish to further discuss the principles of parody, transformative use, and the broader implications for free speech, we remain open to a constructive dialogue. Sincerely, Zachary Shapiro. It looks like this is the lawyer letter, which was pretty funny. But I think Zero Hedge also published an article, and it has the response from Bitcoin Magazine themselves, which is pretty great. They said, it looks like this was sent by Mark Goodwin, who's the editor-in-chief of Bitcoin Magazine. He said, "Dear Thaddeus, on behalf of the entire team at Bitcoin Magazine, I wanted to take the time to thank you for your thoughtful inquiry after having browsed our online store. Doing your Christmas shopping early, you love to see it. Let us know if we can send a box of merchandise to any of the 12 Federal Reserve banks. You might enjoy our content from the latest print Bitcoin Magazine, which discusses the damages your policies have done to our economy and our country. Please don't hesitate to reach out with a list of coveted items, and we will be sure to send them. We want to do our part to stimulate the economy. On to business. We would like to inform you that while we received your cease and desist request, we refuse to comply. We will not be intimidated by your efforts to silence criticism. As you may know, our publication and our readership are deeply troubled by the new FedNow interbanking communication system. We believe not only that it is possibly unconstitutional, but that it threatens the very freedoms that all liberty-loving American citizens should hold dear. With that in mind, we believe it is well within our First Amendment rights to exercise speech on the issue. And to that end, we will be defending our right to sell merchandise that makes buyers aware, through fair use imagery, our position that this system is a threat to civil liberties. I would like to make a few direct comments on quotes present in your letter in order to best articulate what I am sure is to be considered a disappointing response. The Federal Reserve has extensively used and promoted the FedNow mark and has built up substantial goodwill in this invaluable asset. Financial institutions and consumers associate the FedNow mark with the Federal Reserve and its services. An interesting point. For starters, what goodwill has the Federal Reserve built up? Have you seen the state of the working class today? Perhaps you have already forgotten how Fed policy directly led to mismanaged bond portfolios in regional banks across the country, such as Silicon Valley Bank, Signature, Silvergate, or First Republic. Perhaps you have already forgotten about the historic inflation rates seen throughout the U.S. since government-imposed lockdowns all but forced the Treasury's hand to stimulate the economy to the tune of trillions of dollars. There is no goodwill, Mr. Murphy, and certainly not substantial goodwill either. The Federal Reserve recently learned that Bitcoin Magazine is selling t-shirts, hats, and other wearables bearing the FedNow name, as shown in the screenshot below. Bitcoin Magazine's use of the FedNow mark in this manner is likely to cause confusion, mistakes, or deception. Consumers are likely to believe that the gear is associated with, affiliated with, or endorsed by the Federal Reserve, when no such association or relationship exists. This is false. Bitcoin Magazine is exercising its First Amendment rights to social commentary and parody. I'm sure you'll notice the all-seeing eye that symbolizes the state of total financial surveillance that your agency is seeking to impose on the American financial system. We do not believe that anyone that is familiar with our editorial guidelines and general stance on the world would ever associate Bitcoin Magazine with the Federal Reserve. We agree with your assertion that no such association or relationship exists. We have no interest in causing confusion, mistakes, or deception. That sounds more like a job for those responsible for telling the markets they wouldn't raise rates after a massive monetary expansion, and then went on to raise them faster than at any time in U.S. financial history. We look forward to defending our First Amendment rights and the opportunity to make clear to all Americans the difference between the open, free, and decentralized financial system that is Bitcoin and the centralized FedNow system that threatens our nation's founding values. Best, Mark Goodwin, Editor-in-Chief, Bitcoin Magazine. Wow, I think he just nails it. Mark knocks it out of the park with his response to the FedNow lawyers. And I think a lot of interesting ideas are discussed and a lot of concepts are laid out. That's why I wanted to read these articles and sort of the response, but it really shows the contrast between what Bitcoin is and what the way the current financial system works and the way the Fed works and the way money sort of works now. Here in Florida, as part of the Florida Bitcoin and Blockchain Association, or Business and Blockchain Association, we've helped put forth a lot of the legislation that the CBDC bills that have recently been passed and copied by a lot of other states. And I think there are very obvious, constitutional violations with a central bank digital currency and being able to basically track, monitor, and surveil in a much more invasive way than the current system, where we have sort of have a separation with the banking system, although not really. The banks are complying with any kind of request from any government agencies without any kind of actual court subpoenas. And I don't anticipate that stopping anytime soon from all the stuff that happened with the Canadian trucker protests in Canada and the spying that occurred after the events that happened in the Capitol, just turning over people's just a broad blanket data, sort of like almost like a Patriot. This is like the Patriot Act on steroids here. Let's just turn it all over. Let's not have any financial privacy. Let's not have any, let's just totally violate the Fourth Amendment. But I just thought that was a cool little exchange. Let's move on to our next story here. Bankman-Fried has been found guilty on all 7 counts. Sam Bankman-Fried, the co-founder and former CEO of crypto exchange FTX and trading firm Alameda Research, has been found guilty on all 7 counts related to fraud and money laundering. We have laws on the books to deal with fraud and what these con artists have been doing. It's just sad for our industry, but it's nice that we can finally move on. Something else I saw here was the 7 charges being a total possible sentence of 115 years in prison for the defendant. The DOJ's December 22 indictment stated Bankman-Fried knowingly defrauded FTX customers by misusing their deposits to invest in other companies and pay off lenders and expenses. After mounds of evidence and a verdict, that statement has been deemed true by the court and jury. I think that justice has finally been served. 115 years in prison, that's I think quite a long time for a nonviolent felon, even though what he did was terrible and awful, and he still really hasn't shown any remorse or accountability. I think for nonviolent crimes, I don't think somebody should go to prison for life. Somebody should, they should have an opportunity to redeem themselves at some point. But obviously this is pretty heinous. A lot of people have been ripped off and stolen from, essentially, with his highly over-leveraged slush fund / Ponzi scheme or whatever he was running. But this is a good time it's a good moment for industry. We can now move forward and put some of these con artists and people behind us. Let's move on to take a look here at this story. CME Bitcoin futures hit record high, but uncertainty looms above 36K. Bitcoin futures market saw a record surge in interest, but investors have good reasons to be nervous. Bitcoin futures open interest at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. CME hit an all-time high of $3.65 billion on November 1st. This metric considers the value of every contract in play for the remaining calendar months, where buyers and sellers are continually matched. Bullish momentum on CME futures, but cautious BTC options markets. there's more interest coming for the space, more institutional interest. We're going to continue to see new records with the CME Bitcoin futures market. The records are going to continue to be broken, and we're going to continue to see ramping up into this next, bull cycle, whenever that may be, ramping more institutional interest and more institutional buying, whether that be from ETFs or just futures markets. Let's move on. Next up, we've got Elon Musk says XAI to release first model hours after predicting AI would replace all jobs. He tweeted about this. Tomorrow, XAI will release its first AI to a select group. In some important respects, it's the best that currently exists. Elon was largely a part of the reason OpenAI was started in the first place. He was not very happy about Google's outlook and what they were doing with AI, and how they had no really ethical or safety considerations. He founded OpenAI because Google was doing everything behind closed doors, and he wanted a sort of open source, open alternative to that. And initially, he had met Sam Altman, and he helped found OpenAI. They are closed AI now. Now that they're up in the ivory tower, the plebeians do not deserve to see the open source code, right? So, closed AI is what OpenAI essentially is now, which is really kind of just absolutely ridiculous, because that's not what it was founded to be. The reason it was founded was to be an open source sort of AI, a nonprofit that sort of allowed people to see under the hood of what was actually happening. In co. So, we're going to have another large language model sort of released. And I think it's, the more models we have, probably better for the world, better for people, and different, the competition to see different things. And I think Elon has a right idea with how he wants to align this model to, sort of really make sure humanity is protected. I'm not sure if it will be open sourced at this point. He said some other interesting things here, some stuff recently about all jobs will eventually be taken by AI, and you can have a job if you want, just as a novelty or just for satisfaction. But he seems to think that AI will be able to replace essentially all job. Here he says it's hard to say exactly what that moment is, but there will come a point when no job is needed, Musk said, according to CNBC. You can have a job if you wanted to have a job for personal satisfaction, but the AI would be able to do everything. And he's going to release the model initially to a select group here. We have some more models. We have some more technological advancements. I really like what Elon's doing, especially he's really exploring and pushing humanity forward. And I think it's just whether it's with SpaceX or Tesla or Starlink and now XAI, and with Twitter that's now X, freeing people to express themselves. Offering another option in the marketplace, and sort of tackling a lot of these interesting ideas and technologies just at the cutting edge. Kudos to you, Mr. Musk. Thank you, Elon, for what you're doing. Let's move on. Pulled this tweet from the Bitcoin conference. Bank credit is contracting to levels not seen since the global financial crisis. HODL Bitcoin. The chart is kind of self-explanatory here. You could see a very similar pattern occurring right now with massive credit contraction. Our company was recently the victim of losing some credit lines, despite paying our bills on time, despite paying off pretty much our entire balances. American Express recently, I've had a couple other executives and friends I speak to with businesses basically say that their lines got zeroed out. They recently, in the middle of our billing period, we have multiple employees and contractors and people using our credit cards. They essentially took our 6-figure, 7-figure line and cut it by like 90%, just arbitrarily. Sent a notification in the mail saying that we didn't pay our bill off on time, and that's why they did that. Just totally fraudulent, because we pay off our American Express bill in full every month to be able to utilize. You get like essentially a 60-day window to sort of utilize your expenses, and then you need to pay it off. It's not the business platinum card is not really a card that can carry a balance. You have to sort of pay it off at the end of the period, and we had been doing that, sending 5-6 figure payments every month, just paying off the line completely. And so I think something else is going on here. I think this is kind of an example of sort of re-risk management and sort of evaluating. we found it extremely unethical what they did. Just, essentially, we've had this line and we've been using it, we've been paying it off, and then just to, in the middle of a billing period, just to totally reduce that line by 90%. And essentially, everyone on the team is sort of using this card to. It's nice to be able to have everybody, all of the different contractors, employees, sort of segmented and separated out to see what they're spending on, and to be able to view the dashboard, and to sort of have the flexibility with payments for 30 to 60 days. So it is a useful resource, and American Express makes a lot of money when people use their cards, and they charge them on businesses to buy things. They charge probably some of the highest rates in the industry. So we have stellar credit, and we had been fulfilling our end of the obligation of what we were agreed to do, and just sort of put that out there. I don't know if I'm probably not going to work with American Express anymore and not use that card anymore, that they can just arbitrarily do stuff like that. And, that's not really a partnership that I'm excited about or looking to continue. So that's just an example of kind of what's happening here. And I have heard from talking to other business owners that this is very real, and credit lines and credit is sharply contracting. Whether it's justified or unjustified. Let's close out with a story about the differences between a tale of two SEC commissioners. Hester Peirce has proven constructive and shown a willingness to improve regulatory shortcomings. Chairman Gary Gensler has been anything but. Securities and Exchange Commission Chairman Gary Gensler and Commissioner Hester Peirce issued two public statements that show radically different understandings of the application of securities law to crypto. Commissioner Peirce has proven constructive and shown a willingness to improve regulatory shortcomings. Chairman Gensler has displayed a flair for political theater and subtle intimidation. The two have radically contrasting approaches to leadership. Ms. Peirce issued a statement in response to the crypto project library announcing it was shutting down as a result of an agency enforcement action. In stark contrast to Gensler's comments, statements recognize the work the SEC needs to undertake in order to provide a viable framework for crypto. Commissioner Peirce has proposed safe harbor rule for token issuances, a lot of good ideas, for proactive and responsible sort of, rulemaking for crypto, Web3, and tech companies. Hester Peirce has the right mindset. She seems to practice what she preaches. Mr. Gensler has been shown multiple times to be just an outright hypocrite. He taught a class on this stuff at MIT. He's just contradicting himself. He started his term. He even made statements that kind of saying that there was a shortcoming and there was a regulatory gap, and he asked Congress to help close that gap. Months later takes a completely different approach, and just total contradiction to the things he said just months or years earlier. It just is kind of like towing the party line and really being a sellout. I guess he owes Mrs. Warren, or he's got to fulfill some obligations he made to her. Not really sure on all the politics. I know, she was a big part of why he got the role at the SEC, and she was a big part of why Biden got the nomination. She kind of stayed in a little bit longer in the Democratic primary in 2019, to sort of keep Bernie Sanders from winning any crucial states, and she sort of stayed in and pulled some votes from him, and she probably got some concessions, and one of these concessions is she got to appoint the SEC person, and she gets to shape the message and the imaging here. So you're seeing some of that. Basically, Gensler's sort of a sellout. He's going probably against with what he really believes, and just to follow his boss's orders, it seems. Because a lot of this stuff this regulation by enforcement is not productive. It's not good for the industry. It's not good for anybody, right? And I think Mrs. Peirce says something here in her speech. I'm going to go back to it. She also highlighted the negative impact that the current enforcement-only approach has on investors, and showed empathy for the entrepreneurs trying to make sense of the regulations. So thank you, Mrs. Peirce, for saying that. It is definitely frustrating as an entrepreneur and somebody in this space, a business owner who's sending, six-figure tax payments, seven-figure, huge tax payments to the IRS and the government, and then having that same government come and sort of attack our industry and use the money that our tax dollars to essentially, instead of bringing more jobs, opportunity, and growth to our space, doing the complete opposite. And it's very, very disappointing. But I guess we'll close out on that note. And I'd like to say, guys, stay safe, stay blessed, never stop learning, and keep it open. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend.